in my work with the Secret Service, we knew that most people thought that the cameras that were all over the place, the surveillance cameras, Cathee recently heard that there's on your parallel world, or in the one she's on now, 100 million surveillance cameras in her country of what, 300 million people? I mean, it's gotten really ridiculous. And I really wonder how many of those are really being used actively. Many of you know that every email, every phone call in the United States can be stored by the government, and billions of them are every day. At least millions. I don't know exactly the statistics, but what is that about? Accumulation of data. Now, this is where it gets a little dicey. Those who are, and again, I'm speaking across parallel worlds. I'm really probably projecting that your world is a lot like the one I came from, and it may be different, but we're awfully similar. I think there's been a lot of bleed through, and my feeling is that on a mass consciousness level, the accumulation of that data has far surpassed, of course, the ability of anybody to meaningfully sort it all out and use it. And what would you use it for? You know, everyone assumes you would use it to control people. And but I think it's a real time in our evolution as humanity to realize that we have taken the matrix of reality and we have come up with a digitized simulation of it, to the point where it's almost like every thought you think. You know, if you think of emails and phone calls as being all your thoughts and all your feelings are accessible. They are stored in computer databanks, but you can access anybody's thoughts, anybody's feelings. Well, you already can without the computers. You can already access that without the little wiretaps on the phone, or well, you don't even need wiretaps anymore. I know the phone companies are so in cahoots with it. So why don't we just say, where really is this all headed? I think when you hit the boundary of what are we going to do with all this information, and if we're simulating reality with this information, why don't we forget the simulation and just go direct and move into a telepathic society where you can access anything you want to know. You are an access device. You've been given that. You have an astral body. You have a mind. You have a brain that knows how to use the information once it's downloaded from your astral body into your brain. And you are a communication device. You have a mouth. Most of you, I would think. Now, I have had a lot of time now that I'm living on Cathee's Parallel Selves world, Leanie's world, we'll call it, where everything is telepathic. I mean, they still, 10% of the population is literate, and they enjoy speaking things in languages and learning languages because it slows down their experience and they can savor the sound of the words. But really, when you get super telepathic, you go beyond the need for learning different languages. It's much quicker. You're transmitting meanings. And this is why Cathee can channel people that don't know English, and nature beings who, some of whom actually know English. But okay, so on Leni's world, they have had a long tradition of shamanism, of being able to get the signature energy from plants and mountains and communicate with non-humans and many ETs there. So they didn't bother to develop communication devices that are physical to do that. They do have phones, a few here and there, and they use them mainly if you're making big business deals and you need to really write, order like detailed parts and have a whole big long invoice, they might use a phone for that because it's faster than mailing something like that. Telepathically is kind of tedious to transmit telepathically. So they do have landlines, but not a lot. Not a lot. I think it's kind of a bleed over from our world, actually. They tend to just follow their rail lines. They do have rail lines. Their transportation systems tend to work on electromagnetic, natural flows over the Earth's surface. And so sometimes they do send this information kind of in the same, it's hard to explain, but in the same track as the rail line goes with. It's the same flow of information. I mean, the tracks are metal. Wires are metal. Why not use them? To transmit messages, to voice messages. But in general, I feel that their world is much more viable than the world of the people I'm speaking to now. And I may be speaking back in time, hopefully, to some of the people on my own parallel world that met its demise, I hope. But so does it matter whether you do it with a physical device or whether you do it telepathically? The communication, the tuning into people that you want to interact with, or, plants and animals. My feeling is that obviously their culture is much more green, is much more sustainable, because they have developed all the technologies they have in direct conjunction with nature consciousnesses, who they talk to constantly. And if you develop your technology bringing in the deva of say you're coming out with a line of clothing, and you bring in the deva of cotton in your decisions of how you're going to grow the cotton, how you're going to process the cotton, how you're going to distribute the cotton cloth. Why wouldn't you talk? They say, why wouldn't you talk to the spirit of cotton if you're going, wouldn't, duh. And we don't, on my parallel, on your parallel, we don't. We try to force cotton to have certain qualities, and we genetically engineer it, and we put toxic minerals or toxic substances on the crops and so forth. And in our processing of the cloth. So they already have more of a sense of, if you're going to do something, even technological, you bring in the elements that are involved. So I mentioned that their tracks are metal. Well, it's kind of like the track on their transportation system is more down the center of the cars. They drive their cars to the track. They hook the cars up together. They call them wagon loaders. And then together those cars, like train cars, only then when you get to the end of the track, you pull off and you can drive your car off. That's how they do it. But the track down the middle is more to guide the cars than what, it feels like the train is almost going on air. But there is a metal down the center. So in developing this technology, they, of course, talk to, I use the word deva, it means nature spirit. Of course, they talk to the deva of metal. And the deva of metal was honored by them in the development of this and revealed properties to them that the deva of metal has not revealed to us because we've never asked. Their technology is far superior to ours, because of a basic attitude towards reality, of relational, loving interaction in all things.